As the soft twilight fell over the landfill, Olivia Martin, a widowed mother of two, searched for edible items to take home. Scarlett and Jackson, her innocent children, played at a safe distance, unaware of their mother's desperation at not being able to provide a simple meal. Olivia, a woman with a strong and determined face, carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Having lost her husband at the age of 38, her life had become a daily series of trials. "Mama, I'm hungry," Scarlett, the youngest daughter, lamented, gently tugging at her mother's skirt. Olivia smiled sadly, comforting that they would soon find something to eat, though she wasn't sure. As she rummaged through a further pile of trash, Olivia felt her fingers brush against something unexpectedly soft. Pulling the object away, she discovered a luxurious carpet, completely out of place in this filthy environment. Her heart raced at the thought that the rug might be worth a lot, but what she found next left her stunned, a thick envelope filled with banknotes. "This is a lot of money," she muttered to herself, looking around quickly. Deciding what to do with the discovery weighed like a boulder on her shoulders. "Mama, what is it?" Jackson moved closer, curious to see her mother's worried expression. Olivia quickly tucked the envelope away. "No, honey, it's just an old rug," she said, trying to keep her voice even. "Let's take it home, it might be useful." As she prepared to leave the dump, Olivia noticed a figure in the distance watching them. The silhouette was blurry in the falling dusk, making it hard to make out details. The presence of the observer made her heart race, a mix of fear and adrenaline from the discovery. "Mama, who is that?" Scarlett asked, her voice low and filled with fear. Olivia held her daughter's hand tighter. "I don't know, but let's go home," she said, quickening her pace with her two children beside her. "Who should we tell about what we found?" Jackson asked, his eyes trying to read his mother's emotions. "We'll decide to stay home," Olivia replied, her mind racing with the possible consequences of her discovery. "For now we need to keep this between us." They hurried away, their quick footsteps blending with the murmur of the falling night. The figure remained still, and when Olivia took a last look, it was gone. The uncertainty of the scene made her uneasy, but her need to protect her children and her ability to cope with her financial difficulties pushed her forward. After discovering the envelope full of money, Olivia locked the flimsy door of her makeshift home with increasing unease. The small, old wooden house with a roof that barely kept out the rain seemed even more vulnerable that night. Scarlett and Jackson looked at their mother with sad eyes, still remembering the hunger they had expressed earlier. Before deciding on their next move, Olivia made a simple meal from the few vegetables she had gathered earlier, soothing her children's aching stomachs as they ate. The weight of the discovery did not lessen her anxiety. Olivia knew she needed advice and help, but without a phone at home, her only option was to seek help in person. "Mama, will we be okay?" Scarlett asked innocently as she nibbled on her food. Olivia smiled, though her heart was filled with worry. "We'll be okay, honey. Just be careful," she replied, trying to hide her worry, but determined to wrap it in love for her two children. Olivia wrapped the envelope in an old cloth and told her children that her mother would be back soon. She walked out of her house and through the dark streets of her neighborhood to the small police station, where she knew she could find someone trustworthy. When she got there, she found Officer Ethan Johnson, an old friend, patrolling near the station as usual. Ethan was always friendly and attentive to the needs of the community. "Ethan, I need your help," Olivia said, approaching him with a hidden envelope in her hand. "I found this today and I'm afraid it might get you in trouble." Ethan looked closely at the package. "Let me see what's inside," he said, leading her into the station for a more private conversation. Olivia explained the situation, while Ethan examined the bills inside. "You did the right thing by bringing this here. This is too much money to be illegal. I'll take note of it and will investigate its origin based on the serial numbers on these bills," Ethan said, starting to fill out a report. He left the money in her care. Olivia felt a little relieved. He promised to keep it a secret until more information was available. When Olivia arrived at the front door of her small house, her heart was still pounding, not sure if she had made the right decision. She walked across the simple porch, her eyes accidentally caught a piece of paper on the old table. A small envelope with a note was placed there. Olivia picked it up and read the handwritten message, "Stay away from this, forget about the money." Her blood ran cold. She looked around but saw no one, only the envelope in her hand. Olivia quickly closed the door, now realizing that the situation was much more dangerous than she had imagined. The first thing she did was hug her 2 children, promising herself that she would do whatever it took to protect them, even in the face of unknown threats. In the following days, the tension around Olivia increased. Her family's simple lifestyle on the outside remained unchanged, but on the inside everything seemed completely different. She was always on guard, feeling like there were eyes lurking in every dark corner. The normally friendly neighbors now looked at her with curiosity and whispered to each other as she passed, making Olivia feel even more alone. She knew there must be some kind of rumor about what had happened. Maybe someone had seen her go to the police. One morning, while she was preparing a simple breakfast with the money she earned from selling things she found in the trash, her son Jackson asked, "Mommy, why are people acting so strange?" Olivia thought carefully before answering. Sometimes, when people don't understand what's going on, they get nervous or scared. They don't know what happened, but they know something's wrong. Olivia's daughter Scarlett heard the conversation and looked at her mother with big worried eyes. "Do they think we did something wrong?" Olivia comforted. "No, honey, we didn't do anything wrong," she replied as she fixed Scarlett's hair, trying to hide her anxiety. As the day went on, Olivia's feeling of being watched did not lessen. She noticed a strange black car driving slowly down the dirt road where she lived. The first time it passed, she thought it was just a coincidence. The second time, her heart beat faster as the car passed again. The third time, the car stopped in front of her house and drove away, and fear began to take over. That night, while the children slept, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, her hands shaking with anxiety. She tried to calm herself, but the silence of the house only accentuated the thoughts swirling around in her head. Near midnight, the sound of an engine broke the silence of the night, causing her to quickly stand up, looking through the torn curtains and seeing the same black car parked across the street. A masked figure got out of the car and started walking towards her house. Olivia quickly backed away, her heart racing. This can't be a coincidence, she told herself, feeling a mixture of fear and anger. She ran to her children's room, gently waking them up. "We need to go to the back of the house," she whispered, leading them to a hidden spot in the house where she kept some old tools and boxes. "Jackson, in the dark," asked Mom. "What's going on?" Olivia instructed. "Keep quiet," her voice firm, despite her troubled heart. The minutes of waiting seemed to drag on, Olivia listening to every sound outside, wondering if the person would decide to come in. Finally, after a long pause, the engine started up again and the car drove away. Olivia breathed a sigh of relief, but knew that tonight was just a warning, not the end of the troubles. "We should go back to bed," she said, trying to calm her children as she led them back to bed. Olivia knew things were still dangerous, however, and that night's exploration was a clear reminder that danger was still very close, even closer than before. The next morning, after a sleepless night, as the sun began to rise over the dusty horizon, Olivia rose early to make coffee in the kitchen, her mind still filled with fear and uncertainty. Scarlett and Jackson woke up to the smell of coffee and joined their mother, sensing the tension in the air. "Mommy, are you okay?" Jackson asked, noticing the dark circles under Olivia's eyes. She forced a smile as she served the coffee. "Yes, honey, I'm just a little tired," she lied, trying to shield her children from her worries. Olivia had sold a lot the day before, so breakfast was more peaceful today. Olivia's dream was to have a good job so her children could dress with dignity, but few would hire a plain woman like her, especially since she couldn't afford to buy nice clothes for interviews. She made do with what she had. After breakfast, there was a knock on the door. Olivia felt her heart pounding cautiously as she went to open the door and saw Ethan, a police officer, standing outside with a serious expression on his face. "Olivia, we need to talk," he said as he entered. "There have been new developments regarding the money you found." Olivia led Ethan to the small kitchen table. Ethan looked at her seriously before continuing. "We found out that this money is directly related to a larger network of financial fraud. More worryingly, we found out how they knew you found the money." Olivia swallowed, feeling her throat tighten. "How did they know?" she asked, fearing the answer. Ethan explained, "Someone was following you when you went to the dumpster. A remote camera recorded him leaving the area shortly after you found the money. However, we have not been able to identify him yet. But we've traced the money back to the source and concluded that the person behind it all is Alexander Lopez, a name you may have heard of. He's very powerful and dangerous." Olivia's mind reeled at those words. Alexander Lopez was known in the city as a businessman who was both charitable and not to be messed with. Some people believed he was connected to the mafia. Olivia had seen the man in the neighborhood before, accompanied by a few dangerous men. "What does he want from me?" Olivia wondered, her voice trembling slightly. "He wants to make sure you don't cooperate with the police. He has a lot to lose if this investigation continues," Ethan explained, looking her straight in the eye. Just as Ethan was leaving, a noise outside the door caught Olivia's attention. She glanced out the window and saw a car pull up, not the black car from before but a more luxurious and impressive one. Alexander Lopez himself stepped out, accompanied by two large men, seemingly there to ensure his safety. This time Olivia had no choice but to ignore him. With no time to run, she opened the door, trembling with fear. "Dear Olivia, I am Alexander Lopez. I believe you have heard my name around town. We all care about you," Alexander began, his voice as smooth as honey. However, it was clear from his tone that he disliked Olivia for giving the money to the police, which would lead them to him. Despite her fear, Olivia knew she could not reveal anything that could be used against her. "What do you want with me?" Olivia asked. Alexander kept his focus on Olivia. "I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding. It would be a shame if your cooperation with the police harmed the community. We all know that sometimes it's better to leave things as they are, right? And pretend we didn't find anything." His gaze was a clear warning, and Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. He had come not only to threaten her, but to do it publicly, to show that he feared no consequences for his actions. Even though Olivia had reported him to the police, he had still come to her house. By now, all the neighbors had surely seen Alexander's car in front of her house, a reminder that he had no fear of reporters or the police. "I'll think about what you said," Olivia managed, her voice stronger than she felt. Alexander smiled a smile that was not friendly. "Excellent, that's all I ask." He gestured for the guards to follow and returned to the car. After he left, Olivia felt the storm was still far away. "I'll handle this," she said, but the words sounded more like a question than a statement. As she closed the door, she knew the challenge ahead was much greater than she had ever imagined. In the days that followed Alexander Lopez's visit, Olivia felt like she was living under a microscope. The neighbors became more obnoxious, the whispers became more frequent, and the atmosphere around her house became more oppressive. Olivia tried to maintain a normal routine for Scarlett and Jackson, but the fear of retaliation was always in her mind. "Every now and then, Mommy, everyone's acting weird again," Jackson commented as they returned from a short trip to the local market. Olivia squeezed his hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll be fine. We just have to be strong," she replied, trying to smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. One day, Olivia came home to find something strange on the front door. A message was written in red ink, the letters jumbled into sentences. "Stop talking or pay." Her heart pounded. She looked around for whoever could have written the message, but the streets were eerily quiet. They wanted her to drop the report, probably say she made a mistake, and the money belonged to her. "Mom, what does this mean?" Scarlett asked, her voice shaking with fear. Olivia quickly led her inside, locking the door behind her. "No, honey, it's just someone trying to scare us," she said, trying to stay calm, but her heart was pounding like a drum in her chest. She backed out of the door and went to the nearby pay phone, dialing Ethan's number with shaking hands, hoping he would answer quickly. "Ethan, it's Olivia. Someone wrote a threat on my door. I'm really scared," she confessed, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm coming right away," Ethan replied without hesitation. "Don't leave the house and keep the windows and doors closed." While waiting for Ethan, Olivia gathered the children in the living room, trying to distract them with games, but her mind was elsewhere. She jumped at any sound, any shadow through the window, her fear growing with each passing minute. Ethan arrived within minutes, knocking urgently on the door. Olivia ran to open the door, relieved to see his face. "Let me see this message," Ethan said, walking past her to check the door. His face hardened at the threat. "This is getting serious, Olivia. I'm going to have to report this and maybe have the police patrol the area." "Will that help?" Olivia asked doubtfully. "Is it obvious?" Ethan assured her, though his voice was a little uncertain. After Ethan left, Olivia sat on the sofa watching Scarlett and Jackson play. She felt torn between telling them the truth about the danger they faced and maintaining a semblance of normalcy to protect their innocence. On a rainy morning the next day, Olivia heard noises outside and opened the door. On the ground in front of the door was a thick envelope with no address, only Olivia's name written on the front. Her heart pounded as she quickly looked around before picking up the envelope and carrying it inside. Once again, the anonymous handwriting and lack of sender suggested that the contents would be beyond her imagination. "Mommy, someone's knocking," Jackson asked as he watched her from the living room. "No, honey, it's probably just a bad package," Olivia replied, trying to stay calm, but inside her fear was growing stronger. Olivia felt like she was lying to her son, trying to keep her voice steady as she headed toward the kitchen to open the envelope. Despite her aversion to lying, she knew it was necessary to protect her son. Inside, she found a thick stack of documents and intimate photographs. Olivia began to flip through each sheet and page, her face growing paler. The documents revealed a web of corruption that not only linked Alexander Lopez but also many prominent public figures in the city. There were records of payments, inflated contracts, and communications that demonstrated a range of illegal activities. Someone had left these to help her with her report. "It's worse than I thought," Olivia whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the truth in her hands, determined to understand the situation better. Olivia spent the morning analyzing the documents, absorbing every detail, every implication. The connections were far beyond what she had imagined, reaching into the highest echelons of local power. That afternoon, while Scarlett and Jackson played in the yard, Olivia sat in a chair, contemplating her next move. She knew that revealing this information could trigger more serious consequences, but she also knew that silence would perpetuate the corruption that affected so many lives. At that moment, the public phone in front of her house rang, breaking the silence of the street. Olivia ran to it and picked it up with trembling hands. "Olivia Martin," a distorted voice said from the other end. "Yes, it's me," she answered, her tone wary. "You don't know me, but I know what you've received today. It's important that you understand the seriousness of the information I'm sending you. Trust no one." The voice warned, and before Olivia could ask more, the call was disconnected. Olivia stood there, phone still in hand, the warning echoing in her mind. She needed help, but as the anonymous voice had warned, how could she trust anyone? Olivia felt increasingly isolated in her fight against the corruption, now more visible to her, more personal and intimate than ever. When she returned home, the files were still spread out before her, each line a web of connections and corruption that seemed to suffocate her. "Mommy, I want to play with you," Scarlett called from the door, her voice innocent. "Later, honey," Olivia replied, trying to smile. She stood, locking the files in a drawer before joining her children. As she watched Scarlett and Jackson play, the gravity of the situation became clearer than ever. Protecting the two children was her top priority, but she wondered how much she could do without endangering their safety. Inside, Olivia was struggling with an internal conflict. She was pondering whether to give the documents to the police and risk losing everything, or to stay quiet and play it safe, even if it meant continuing to accept the corruption. Each choice was heavy and painful in its own way. "Mom, I'm going to Javier's," Jackson shouted from the door, breaking Olivia's train of thought. "Wait, Jackson, I'll come with you," Olivia began, but before she could finish, Jackson was out of sight. Olivia's heart was beating faster. She ran to the door, calling out her son's name, but Jackson was already out of sight. Worry took over as she considered all the possible consequences of confronting Alexander Lopez. It was late afternoon now, the sky tinged with orange and purple as Olivia began searching for Jackson with Scarlett. She began asking people in the neighborhood if they had seen her son, but no one knew where he was. "Mom, where's Jackson?" "I'm going to miss dinner," Scarlett asked, her eyes small and worried. Olivia tried to stay calm, but the pain was clear in her voice. "I'm sure I'm close, I'll be back soon," she assured herself and her daughter. But as the night wore on and there was still no sign of Jackson, Olivia felt panic creeping in. She grabbed the payphone, her hands shaking as she dialed Ethan's number. "Ethan, it's Olivia. Your son, Jackson, is missing. He just went to a friend's house and was gone for a few hours," she stammered, her voice cracking with fear. "We're sending a patrol right now to look for him," Ethan replied firmly. Olivia hung up, her heart racing. The thought that Jackson's disappearance might be linked to her decision to fight corruption made her shudder. She wondered if the pursuit of justice had gone too far, if the price was higher than she was willing to pay. The night dragged on as if every minute that passed without news of Jackson was a void for Olivia. She searched the neighborhood with Scarlett, asking people if anyone had seen him, but no one knew where Jackson was. Suddenly, Olivia heard police sirens and ran to the door, fearing that something had happened. When she opened it, she saw Ethan step out of a police car, his stern expression bringing a mixture of relief and concern. "We found him," Ethan said quickly as Olivia opened the door. "He's fine. He was playing at a nearby park with friends and lost track of time." Olivia breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "Great," she said, thanking Ethan for his assistance. Ethan, however, only smiled slightly and gestured towards the car. "He's on his way," Ethan explained. Olivia quickly ran inside, hugging her son tightly. "I'm so worried," Jackson whispered, looking at his mother with a wary gaze. After hugging her son, Olivia was about to thank Ethan again, but he stopped her with a serious gesture. "We need to talk," Ethan said, his eyes unable to hide the worry. Olivia knew something was wrong, and she knew it wasn't over. As Olivia tried to understand why Ethan wanted to talk more, she remembered the suspicious call from the strange voice and the presence of Alexander Lopez. "Ethan, what happened?" she asked, her eyes searching his face for answers. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then began to speak. "We've reviewed the documents you sent, and there are things we need to clarify. You may not fully understand what's going on." Olivia felt a lingering worry in her heart. "What are you talking about? Do you know about Alexander Lopez's connection to the corruption network?" she asked, her voice filled with determination. Ethan sighed, then said, "Yes, and we're investigating further. But we need your cooperation to ensure the safety of your family. There are people who don't want you to continue to investigate." Olivia felt her heart pounding. "So you're saying that Alexander Lopez won't stop at just threatening me?" she asked, her voice full of challenge. "We can't confirm everything, but there's reason to believe he's not happy with what you've uncovered," Ethan replied seriously. Olivia could sense the sincerity in Ethan's words, but she couldn't deny the danger lurking around her and her family. "So what should I do?" Olivia asked, looking straight at Ethan, wanting a clear direction. "We need you to continue to cooperate and provide any information you have. At the same time, make sure you and your family are safe. We'll support you through this process," Ethan explained. Olivia knew that this was not the time to give up. She had seen injustice and corruption, and now she had to decide whether to continue fighting or retreat to protect her loved ones. With the support of Ethan and the investigation team, she decided not to let fear rule her decision. "I will cooperate," Olivia said, her voice firm. "We have to do the right thing, not just for my family but for the community." Ethan nodded, sensing the determination in her words. "Good. We will plan and make sure you are protected throughout this process. But you need to be careful and not reveal this information to anyone else," he reminded her. Olivia understood that this would be a long and dangerous fight, but she was willing to face it to bring justice. Still, the police didn't trust her. "We both know that making a deal with Alexander won't bring anything in the long run. It's just buying silence, not safety," Ethan replied. Olivia thought deeply, every part of her struggling with the moral dilemma before her. "I can't accept it, not after everything I've seen and known. It's like being an accomplice, but I fear for my children's lives." Ethan nodded, respecting her decision. "I knew you would say that. I'll keep an eye on Jackson and Scarlett, notify all the police to keep them safe." After Ethan left, Olivia felt a strange mixture of fear and gratitude. She was grateful that Jackson was safe, but at the same time she was terrified that something might happen. She got the children ready for bed, trying to pretend that everything was normal, but the suffocating anxiety made it hard to breathe. Olivia stepped out into the front of the house for some fresh air, but her sense of dread grew as she saw the front door. She remembered locking it when she entered the bedroom. On the old table on the porch, there was an envelope containing several photos of her and her children, along with a message written in red letters, "Think carefully about your choices." With shaking hands, Olivia gathered the photos together, realizing that her decision to fight back only added to the danger of the game she was playing. She knew that each step forward was more dangerous, but turning away was not an option. The challenge had only just begun. The next day, 24 hours after Alexander's threat and nearing his deadline, the situation worsened. Olivia received a call from Ethan's partner in the police force on a payphone. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. "Olivia, I need you to come to the hospital right now. Something's happened." Olivia's voice was shaking with fear. "Ethan was found in the park this morning, badly injured. He was in critical condition, on ventilator. He couldn't talk, but he asked me to convey something immediately, Marco said, his voice heavy, making Olivia's heart squeeze. Without wasting another second, Olivia arranged for someone to babysit and rushed to the hospital. The sterile white corridors of the hospital seemed to stretch on forever as she made her way to the ICU, where Ethan was admitted. As she entered the room, Olivia was met with the sight of Ethan motionless on a hospital bed, surrounded by tubes and humming machines. Tears filled her eyes at the sight of her friend and ally in that state. Marco, Ethan's partner, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You attacked from behind without a chance to defend yourself. It seems they knew exactly when you would be alone," Marco explained, his voice filled with unbridled anger. Olivia felt a pang of pain and anger. "Why did they do this to you?" she asked, even though deep down she knew the answer. "They want to code you, Olivia. They want you constantly," Marco spoke bluntly, his gaze fixed on her. The reality of his words hit Olivia like a punch. The attack on Ethan was not only a message to him but also a clear warning to her. As she sat by Ethan's bed, feeling his cold hands, Olivia pondered what to do. Each time her friend dealt with the trade, it hardened her mind. "They want me to be permanent and give up," she whispered to herself. "But I can't do this." When she returned home that night, Olivia felt the gravity of the decision she had made. She knew that fighting on could have saved her from more serious consequences, but the option of silence now seemed impossible. As she opened the door, a sense of loneliness permeated her. It was clear that her struggle had cost her a great deal, and the cost would continue to rise. "God, please protect me. I just want to return the money and do the right thing," she prayed, fearful. Olivia had just closed the door when she noticed something strange: an envelope carefully placed on the door, her name written in large, lucky letters. With trembling hands, Olivia picked up the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a bold message: "This is your final warning." Olivia held the paper with trembling hands, realizing that her situation was becoming more dangerous than ever. Every decision, every step extended the shadow of danger, touching everything and everyone she loved. The weeks that followed the final warning were marked by a palpable tension, like a thick layer of fog that hung over Olivia's house. Every day, she beefed up the security of the house, adding more boards to the doors and installing new fences on the windows. Life in the house became a series of carefully organized routines to ensure everyone's safety. One afternoon, as Olivia was sorting through the papers, she received a sudden call that broke the anxious monotony. It was Marco, Ethan's partner, with news that made her heart pound completely. "Olivia, you wouldn't believe it. Ethan is awake and talking. He wants to testify to reveal everything he knows about Alexander Lopez's links to corruption in the city. You need proof too." Olivia felt a mixture of relief and fear. "I'm glad Ethan is well, Marco, but is it safe after everything that's happened? Are we taking every precaution?" "Ethan is under police protection, and we're planning on keeping everything under wraps until the last minute," Marco explained with a golden heart. In the days leading up to the testimony, Olivia felt torn between the hope that they could finally expose the truth and the nagging fear of what might happen next. She visited Ethan in the safe house where he was being kept, finding him relatively well but still scarred by the events that nearly took his life. "Olivia, we can't just walk away from this," Ethan said with more determination than Olivia. Olivia walked forward, her steps determined, despite the fear that laced every word she spoke. Each word she uttered not only exposed Alexander's crimes, but also her own weakness. During a break, as Olivia returned to her seat, a man she recognized as one of Alexander's closest comrades approached her discreetly. He handed her a small piece of paper, and Olivia took it with trembling hands, folding it under the table, reading the hastily written words: "This will not end here. Be careful." Olivia's blood ran cold, and she looked around to see if anyone else had noticed the exchange, but everyone was busy with their own conversations and preparations for the next trial. As the trial continued, Olivia felt each threat burn in her mind. She tried to concentrate on the proceedings, on the lawyer's questions and the witnesses' answers, but somehow she was always alert, always waiting for the next punch. The solemn hall was stifling with tension, the murmurs of the people rang out, the air was thick with anticipation. This was not just a case of corruption, but also a matter of justice and humanity. Olivia declared strongly, "I choose not to be silent because silence makes us complicit. I choose to fight not for myself but for all those who have no voice against this mafia." Her voice echoed throughout the quiet space of the courtroom. When the testimony ended, a respectful silence fell, broken only by the judge's call for the next witness. Olivia returned to her seat, feeling the weight of her words falling on everyone's shoulders. When the final trial of the day ended, Olivia stood up, tired but resilient. A crowd had gathered outside the courthouse, in front of Alexander Lopez's supporters, their faces twisted with anger and contempt. They had probably been threatened to come there, holding signs, shouting threats, and blocking Olivia's exit. The hatred in their eyes was clear and terrifying. Olivia paused, her heart pounding uncontrollably. Marco put a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "We're not alone in this." Looking around, she saw that some of the people in the hall, moved by her testimony, had begun to join her, forming a protective human wall. Together, they headed for the exit, facing the screams and hostile stares, turning their backs on their family's shelter. After the confrontation in the courthouse, Olivia was relieved to see Scarlett and Jackson playing peacefully on the living room floor. The children's clear laughter was a stark contrast to the seriousness Olivia felt after her testimony. She joined in their play, trying to find comfort in the normalcy of motherhood, but her mind was still troubled. What if I've gone too far, she wondered, looking at her two young children. What if my fight for justice has only put them in more danger? As she put the children to bed, Olivia kissed their foreheads, trying to convey a peace she didn't truly feel. "Good night, I love you. Everything will be okay," she whispered, more a promise to herself than a reassurance to them. After making sure the children were asleep, Olivia sat at the table under the dim lights, allowing herself a moment of despair. The fight seemed endless, and for a moment she considered giving up. Then the payphone across the street rang, cutting through the silence of the night like an alarm. Hesitant, Olivia ran to pick it up, afraid it might be someone sent by Alexander. Olivia Martin. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost unrecognizable due to the voice filter. "Yes, who is speaking?" Olivia replied in a trembling voice. "I cannot reveal the identity, but I know what you need. I have in my hands one final piece of evidence that can turn the tables on you, evidence that can ensure that Alexander Lopez and his accomplices cannot escape this time." Olivia's heart was pounding. "How can I trust you? How do I know this isn't a trap?" she asked. The voice admitted, "I have no choice, but I'm the one who gave you the documents before that prove some things about Alexander, so you know you're safe with me. I'll be at the city park at dawn, alone. If you want the truth, come and find it." The call ended abruptly, leaving Olivia with the phone still in her hand and a whirlwind of thoughts swirling through her mind. This could be a chance, perhaps the last chance to get what she needed to ensure justice, but it could also be a deadly risk. Olivia lay awake all night, contemplating her decision. As the first light of dawn broke, she made her decision, reinforced by the thought that every step she took was for a greater purpose than her own safety. With renewed determination, she prepared for the meeting, knowing that it could be the decisive turning point in her relentless fight for justice. At dawn, Olivia walked toward the city park where the decisive meeting had been arranged. The morning mist still shrouded the park, turning every bench and tree into a mysterious and tense scene. She remained alert, paying attention to any suspicious movements. Finally, she spotted a lone figure near the lake, wrapped in a long coat. Olivia approached cautiously, sensing that this moment could be both a trap and the key to her fight. The figure lowered her hood, revealing the face of a woman with a look of sad determination in her eyes. "Olivia Martin," the woman asked in a quiet voice. "Yes, I am you. You said you had something for me," Olivia replied, struggling to keep her composure. The woman handed Olivia a thick envelope. "I'm Alexander Lopez's former assistant. These are recordings of Alexander admitting to everything from bribery to manipulation. I can't take it anymore. I hope it helps you." Olivia grabbed the envelope, her hands shaking. "Why now? I saw what he did to people, to you, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I thought siding with him would give me safety, but it only brought guilt." The woman quickly explained and turned away, leaving Olivia with the recordings in her hands. She returned to court the next day, where the recordings were played before the judge and jury. Alexander tried to defend himself, but the evidence was overwhelming. During the trial, Alexander was forced to admit his motives in a shocking statement. "I thought I could control everything and everyone. Power blinded me to justice and morality." Olivia felt a slight breeze blow through the courtroom as Alexander's admission rang out. Everyone in the courtroom looked at each other in surprise and astonishment, once stoic faces now filled with disappointment and disbelief. The judge stood up, raised his hand to stop, and the atmosphere became heavier than ever. "Mr. Lopez," the judge began, "I will not continue this trial. You have admitted your guilt, and we will transfer you to a detention facility to begin your criminal proceedings." Alexander looked around the room, his eyes slowly fading as he realized that it was all over. Olivia felt a great sense of relief, but at the same time she couldn't help but feel tired from all the hard work. She walked out of the courtroom, where the sun was starting to shine behind the tall buildings, symbolizing that justice had been served. Outside, Alexander's supporters now stood silently, their faces blank and unyielding. Some of them bowed their heads, showing their realization of their mistakes, while others left without saying a word. Olivia met Marco, who had been by her side throughout the war. He took her hand and smiled softly. "We did it." Together, they walked home, through the bustling streets where people were starting to return to their daily lives. As Olivia entered her house, she felt a warmth spread, not only from her family but also from the success of the struggle. Scarlett and Jackson ran to hug her, their eyes filled with joy and innocence. Olivia took the two children's hands, a feeling of happiness spreading in her heart. "I love you," she said, her voice full of affection. "Everything is okay." In the living room, Olivia sat down on the sofa, looking at the loved ones around her. She realized that, although the war had made an important step forward, her journey was not over yet. There were hurts and wounds that needed to be healed, and she knew that justice was not always easy to achieve. However, her determination and courage made the difference. Olivia looked out the window, where the city lights were beginning to fill the streetlights. She felt a new hope in her heart, knowing that no matter how many hardships lay ahead, she would always stand up for truth and justice. She sat with her family, enjoying the peaceful moment of resolution, knowing that each day that passed was a step closer to a more just world. After the trial, a significant portion of the assets seized from Alexander Lopez were awarded to Olivia as compensation. With the reward, Olivia not only secured a bright educational future for her two children, Scarlett and Jackson, but also bought a new home, symbolizing a new beginning for their family. In the weeks that followed, Olivia's story was often told as an example of courage and integrity. She became an inspirational figure in the community, encouraging others to speak out against injustice and threats. "Mama, we changed our city," Jackson said as the family sat gazing at the starry sky from the yard of their new home. Olivia smiled, gently stroking her son's hair. "We changed it, honey. All of us who chose to speak up, and we will continue to change it, always for the better." It is the peace of knowing that the fight was worth it, and that peace is the greatest reward of all. 5 years after the lawsuit that shook the city to its foundations, Olivia watches her two children in the spacious, sunny courtyard of the house that symbolizes the new life they have built. Scarlett, now a brilliant teenager, studies under the shade of the trees, while Jackson, more mature and almost a young man, helps in the garden. The education that Olivia has secured with financial rewards has transformed their lives. Scarlett shows considerable talent for science, dreaming of becoming an engineer, while Jackson develops a passion for literature, often found with a book in hand, lost in the worlds created by words. Olivia has finally found steady work, and the two children no longer face any hardship, living happily with their mother. The community around them has also changed. Where fear and corruption once reigned, a spirit of cooperation and justice now reigns. Olivia has played a key role in this transformation, not only as the woman who challenged Alexander Lopez, but also as an inspirational figure, continuing to work with the community to ensure the shadows of the past never return. Alexander Lopez and his co-defendants spent their days behind bars after being convicted. The recordings brought by his former assistant were the final blow to his corrupt network, not only dismantling his illegal operations, but also serving as a warning to others who would dare to embark on a similar path. Ethan, who has recovered from his injuries, has become the local police chief, leading a period of reform and transparency within the force. He and Olivia maintain a strong friendship, bound by a shared history of struggle and overcoming hardship. One quiet afternoon during one of Ethan's visits, Olivia prepared tea while reflecting on the impact of her story. Her struggle had been turned into a local documentary, used in schools as a lesson in the importance of integrity and courage. It's strange to think that our story would be studied like that, Olivia thought to herself. I just returned the money and reported what I discovered, just doing my part. But Ethan replied, it's a reminder that, no matter how hard the fight, it's worth fighting for what's right. No matter how hard it is, staying true to yourself is essential. He continued, Ethan's company always brings laughter and a welcome energy. We sit in the garden as the sun sets behind the trees, the conversation flowing between the past and the future, between memories of dark times and plans for a brighter tomorrow. Ethan, Olivia said, you changed our city. Ethan raised his glass to toast, you changed our lives. Olivia smiled as her two children joined them. We changed it, all of us, and we will continue to change it, always for the better. As night fell on a city that had once trembled under the weight of corruption, now illuminated by the promise of justice and renewal, Olivia felt truly at peace. Not only because she had won the battle, but because she knew that her struggle would inspire others to not fear the darkness, to stand up and speak out, regardless of the powerful forces against them. In that truth, Olivia found not only peace but a purpose that would shape the rest of her life.